Hello, YouTubers out there. This is Jerry Sutterview at the movies. So I'm going to talk very briefly about Sacheen Littlefeather. Some of you know this was the Native American woman who came on stage back in 1973 at the Academy Awards and basically was there to accept, people thought, the Oscar for Best Actor for Marlon Brando, who didn't show up. So instead he sent Sacheen Littlefeather. And she came on stage, and Roger Moore was the presenter, along with Liv Ullmann. They were ready to give her the Oscar. She said no. Roger Moore did, oh, type of thing. And she was dressed like a Native American stereotype. I mean, she kind of looked like Pocahontas. And she basically said Marlon Brando refuses his Oscar, and the reasons have to do with the treatment of Native Americans in Hollywood film history, in westerns, so on and so forth. And of course, during that time, there was the Wounded Knee incident that certainly got out of hand. So Brando himself, being very much a political figure, had his he wanted to protect, obviously, and spoke about the rights or lack of rights for the American Indian, as it was known back in those days, the American Indian movement. And that was that. So she got a lot of boos. The document, I believe, was about 762 words, something of that nature. So the Academy has decided to apologize for what had occurred back then, because after 50 years, she was not able to get work as an actress, or not, certainly not as often as she wanted. And so on September 17th, the Academy will host an evening of conversation, reflection, healing, and celebration with Littlefeather as part of the museum's ongoing dedication to creating programs and exhibitions that illuminate the entertainment industry's past while paving a way for a meaningful change in the future. It will feature a land acknowledgement, a reading of a statement of apology from the Academy, and so on and so forth. So, now, she has been having health issues, and in 2018 was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, which had metastasized to her right lung. Now, the reason I bring this up is there is a film historian named Farhan Nimi, and she writes for Sight and Sound and Film Comment magazines. And she basically was talking about this myth that had circulated for quite some time about the fact that John Wayne was apparently in the wings of the pavilion and had to be held back by 6 security guards because he was ready to physically assault Sacheen Littlefeather. Now, this was not something the press came up with. This is something that Sacheen Littlefeather herself said was the case. And she, as soon as she was ready to speak, presumably he was ready to come on stage and rip her apart, essentially. So Farhan wrote this article that basically says, you know what, this is probably not the case at all. This may be more legend than fact. And how ironic, because John Wayne himself appeared in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, which is about has that famous line, print the legend, not the facts. So the legend is that John Wayne tried to do this. Now, in those days, we're talking now in 1973, I don't think that the Academy Awards had a whole lot of security. And also keep in mind that even if they did, look at what happened this year at the Academy with Will Smith and Chris Rock. Well, Will Smith just came right on the stage and slapped Chris Rock in the face. I didn't see a whole bunch of security suddenly coming out of nowhere and trying to stop him, which is interesting because a few years back, this was not necessarily a security issue, but Warren Beatty, if you remember, read the wrong Best Picture Oscar award title, which was not, goodness, I forget the name of the musical now, but it was the movie Moonlight that was supposed to win Best Picture, not this movie musical with Ryan Gosling. So almost immediately, people came on stage and then corrected the situation and said, yeah, this was not the case. Um, the only time that I know of where security was very, very tight was when Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro were at the Oscars in 1981, because film Raging Bull was nominated for Oscars. And right around that time, I think it was a mere 3 days after Ronald Reagan, there was an attempt on his life. And this was from the guy who was a Jodie Foster fan and said that he loved Taxi Driver and that was the reason why he did what he did, etc., etc. Now, the FBI was there and there was a lot of security, and Scorsese said, I've never seen this much security in my life. I wonder why they're here. He had no idea that this had to do with the fact that, you know, there could be an issue or a problem based on the fact of the film Taxi Driver. Nothing to do with Raging Bull itself, even though both films were written by Paul Schrader. So then there's the, as someone pointed out, and it was one of the thoughts I had too, that back in 1974, when David Niven was presenting an award, there was a guy who ran across the stage and was a streaker. I mean, he was naked, and I think eventually security got to him, but, you know, 6 guys stopping John Wayne from doing something violent doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Number one, there's no proof that John Wayne was even there on the wings of the pavilion. Number two, he may have had an issue with what Sacheen Littlefeather was saying, no doubt about it, as did many people, because there were a lot of boos in the audience. But you didn't see anybody from the audience coming up on stage. That would have been almost unprecedented, number one, because why would there be 6 security guards around there on the wings with, and John Wayne's, what is he doing there in the first place? You know, it doesn't even make any sense unless he was waiting to present an award, but that was not the case. So apparently he did participate in a sing-along towards the end of the broadcast. So there are some things that don't make a whole lot of sense, but Sacheen Littlefeather insists that he was there and more likely was going to do something to her. So this is her view on things. Now, you could choose to believe it or not. Who knows? I wasn't there. I have no idea. But when you consider that, generally speaking, security is not even there to stop Will Smith from doing anything, and of course he just sort of burst on the stage, which wasn't too many feet away from where he was sitting anyhow. So nobody could have done anything almost immediately. But the slap itself, after the slap, somebody should have escorted him out of there. Who's to say Will Smith wouldn't try to do something else? So there's a lot of issues I have with this. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but this is what Sacheen Littlefeather says. So that's that. So tell me what you think. Do you believe Sacheen Littlefeather, or do you believe the very well researched article by Farhan, which I'll have the link on the bottom? Do you believe that maybe this was not the case? This is just more legend than, you know, fact. So let me know what you think, and please subscribe to my channel and let me your thoughts. And I think that's all I got to say about that. And this is Jerry Sutterby at the Movies, signing off.